It's the Metro on 1019 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Today on the program, an Arab American Empowerment Summit is happening today and tomorrow. We'll talk about what it means to build power during a time of devastation, uncertainty, and grief for a lot of Arab Americans.
Plus, Detroit's 36th District Court hears criminal and civil cases, and 2 new judges will be in that court after the election. We'll hear from one of those candidates later in the show.
Also, it's Friday, and that means the Detroit Documenters are here to catch us up on all the public meetings happening around the city. They go to the meetings so you don't have to. This week, we'll speak about the city's push to hold landlords accountable. I am a renter. I am very interested in this effort, Tia.
Same. Very much same. We have a lot of different rental companies and hands that have their, all the little moving pieces and parts that are in the rental system right now. So I am very interested to see what this means for all of us going forward. It's one of my favorite conversations, the Documenters conversation. But just looking at the weather right now, today we expect a chance of rain and a high of 62 degrees. Saturday, sunny, 57 degrees, and Sunday, sunny with a high of 56 degrees.
From the WDET newsroom, former President Donald Trump returns to Michigan today. He has rallies scheduled in Traverse City tonight and in Novi tomorrow. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris attends a Get Out the Vote rally in Kalamazoo tomorrow with former First Lady Michelle Obama.
A man who spent 22 years in prison for murder has been freed because of tainted testimony at his trial. A jury found Levon Hill guilty in the fatal shooting of 2 men, a crime he says he didn't commit. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy says Hill's conviction hinged on the testimony of a Detroit police officer who was later found guilty of organizing bank robberies. Worthy says no one involved in Hill's trial knew about the officer's criminal activity or that he had been suspended at the time. The Innocence Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School uncovered other problems with the case, including the fact that the victims were shot with a rifle, not a handgun, as jurors were told.
And on a lighter note yes, looking at sports. The World Series begins tonight in Los Angeles, where the Dodgers host the New York Yankees.
And the Red Wings, they beat the New Jersey Devils 5-3 at Little Caesars Arena. Detroit has won 3 straight games. It's huge. It's huge.
And Detroit City Football Club wraps up the USL Championship regular season tomorrow night on the road against San Antonio FC. Le Rouge starts the playoffs at home next Saturday.
And lastly, for sports, the Lions enter Sunday's game against the Tennessee Titans, all alone in first place in the NFC North. That's because the Minnesota Vikings, who were tied with Detroit, lost to the LA Rams 30-20 last night. Kings in the North. Excited about that. But starting to show out. In the 1940s, Detroit, like many communities across the country, saw the highway system tear through black neighborhoods. It disrupted the way of life, where new music, foods, and cultures thrived. But now, Michigan and other states around the country are working to reconnect communities torn apart by highways. That's true for the project to undo I-75. It's also true for a new project to cap I-75 that would connect downtown and midtown. Recently, public engagement sessions began on this project. The Downtown Detroit Partnership, Michigan Department of Transportation, and the City of Detroit have spearheaded this initiative. Joining us now to explain the details of capping I-75, we have 2 guests with us. Eric Larson, the CEO of Downtown Detroit Partnership. Eric, welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Of course. And also we have Antoine Bryant, the City of Detroit's Director of Planning and Development as well. Antoine, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning. So, Eric, this has been a years-long process to get to this point. Where did the idea of capping I-75 come from?
Well, as my partner Antoine knows, it's actually been a little bit longer than a year. This really came out of some early ideas and studies as the Little Caesars Arena was being envisioned, and then got a bit more steam when the district Detroit was going through its community benefits efforts with Antoine and the planning department. And now through some very, very important funding from the Kresge Foundation, we have been able to take that vision and really start to reflect what is ultimately communities' wants, aspirations, and wishes, and that's what this is about. It's as you said in the opening, an opportunity to really start to think about how we reconnect our communities, how we repair some of the damage that was caused back in the 50s and 60s, but most importantly, how we can lean into the growth and the momentum that is taking place both in the core as well as throughout the city. So for us, we're excited because we have our third I-75 CAP visioning session on Tuesday, October 29th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the MSU Detroit Center, which is just on Woodward, just a little bit north of the Little Caesars Arena. And we're hoping that people come out and continue to help us shape this vision around what not only a cap of I-75 could look like, but most importantly, what the activities on top of that cap could be.
And Antoine, what was the first two sessions, the planning sessions, like? What was some of the feedback that you all received?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, some of the feedback that we've heard already, there's quite a bit of excitement in the community for this opportunity. People appreciate that we are going to be able to link some of our neighborhoods from the east side back toward downtown. That's something that has been teased out through some of the earlier conversations with 375, and they're continuing on with 75. But then also the possibilities that exist on the real estate itself that will be on these bridges, right? And so one of the things that we're really trying to tease out as far as a design concept is the idea of expanded kind of bridges as opposed to an entire covering over the entire way. There's a way to make each one of those have their own identity from a physical standpoint, as well as making these a much more tenable project fiscally. One of the examples that many come up with is Clyde Warren Park, which is a very successful CAP that's in Dallas, Texas, over a highway that has led to a phenomenally used park right in downtown Dallas. And that's something that I think has a lot of vitality, but the sticker shock of that is pretty astronomical. And so there are other examples that exist of more linear parks. That could be a series of experiences. And I think that's something that we may be able to get some. It looks like there's a lot of rising interest in. And we'll begin to hear more from the community and have more of these discussions on our upcoming meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah, so speaking of that upcoming final session, you're coming to the table with that feedback. You're bringing it all together from the residents there and the stakeholders in the community. What should people expect, especially with the new plans and designs from adding all this together?
Well, I think
Antoine, go. Yeah.
Go ahead, Antoine. Yeah.
So I think some of the things they can expect, we do know, and this is part of the kind of the public participation process, there will be some people that are still new. They missed the first meeting so we have to kind of introduce the concept of what this can be. So there will be some presentation of what it could look like from a very, very conceptual standpoint of a series of coverings over 75 as opposed to one large one. So we'll be kind of looking at what that can look like from a very conceptual stage. We'll still be listening, right? We'll still be entertaining the thoughts of our residents to kind of understand what they'd like to see when this comes about. So, I think it's integral that people appreciate. We want to hear from residents about their desires, and then also have the opportunity to really begin to tease out. This can be an absolute boon to the community, right? These things, not only could it be parkland, but it could be activation in the built environment. Could there be the opportunity to have pop-up opportunities, to have tactical urbanism, to have various different kinds of activation of that land and increased mobility, right? One of the things that we heard tremendously at the meetings earlier is that trying to traverse 75 on foot is challenging, right? And the opportunity to make this much more amenable to a variety of forms of mobility is something we're going to really want to emphasize and begin to have some real dialogue with the residents about as well.
A question for either Eric or Antoine. Urban planning, it's often about not reinventing the wheel, but looking to other examples. And I heard an example in Texas mentioned. Where else have you all been looking?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's really interesting. Right here in our own backyard in Oak Park, Michigan, 696 was a project that MDOT did almost 30 years ago, where there was a series of 3 caps over 696. The activation on top of those caps were parks and public space that the local community not only programs but also now has the opportunity to enjoy. And to Antoine's point, on Tuesday at the MSU Detroit Center, we really are looking for people to think about not only what are the uses, for instance, fitness stations, youth play structures, seating, art, bike paths, but also the environmental and the social sort of aspects of repair that this type of intervention reflects. And the last piece that's very important, and it's a combination of what's happening on I-375 as well as what's happening here on I-75, is what are the legacy pieces? What is it that we want to really be able to reflect in terms of our history? How do we lean into the impact that these highway systems had on the surrounding community, and what can we do to reflect and to acknowledge that impact, but most importantly, focus on where we're headed in the future and making sure that we're not making the same mistakes. So those are the reasons that it's so important for the community to show up, for the voices of all to be heard. And that's why, again, in partnership with the city and MDOT, we've been very deliberate in having these engagements.
If you're just joining us, we're chatting with CEO of Downtown Detroit Partnership, Eric Larson, and Detroit's Director of Planning and Development, Antoine Bryant. We're chatting about the plan to cap a portion of I-75 in downtown Detroit and midtown Detroit. So, Eric, sticking with you, what should Detroiters expect in the upcoming year, especially as we talk about the project and their input and what we can see coming forward with those plans?
Well, as Antoine said, there is a tremendous amount of excitement and interest in this project, but also with I-375, and that interest and support isn't just locally. The federal government, especially through the Federal Highway Administration, is extremely focused on these types of projects, as you mentioned in your opening. These 2 projects are very high on the Federal Highways list of demonstration projects of what we can do, what communities can do to not only restore but repair. And so I think in the next year, what we're excited is, in addition to the conceptual planning and visioning that is taking place now, we actually believe through some very important federal grants, 2 of which we've already received. One was by the support of Senator Gary Peters, and that's a roughly $2 million grant that is going to the city of Detroit. And then the Federal Highway Administration has also provided a federal planning grant to Downtown Detroit Partnership. And so combined, we have another $4 million that we can put towards moving the planning and engineering forward. We have another grant that is out there that we've applied for that would help us finish the engineering and planning, and then we would be looking for construction grants. So the intent is to continue to push this forward. A lot of it does depend on making sure that it reflects what the community wants, but we need to find a way to pay for it. And as Antoine said, there are different ways to do that. Some of it is in the segmentation of the caps. So do we have a series of smaller caps that are, in some ways more affordable? They also could potentially be phased so that, from a funding standpoint, we don't necessarily have to try and attract all the dollars at once. But that's what you'll see over the next year, and we would hope to be in a very strong position to move this project forward from a construction standpoint towards the end of that year.
And Antoine, bringing you back into the conversation as well, this project will demand a lot of construction work. How much disruption to businesses and residents may be caused due to the construction that's happening out there? And what ways are you guys going to try to mitigate this from happening to the businesses that are already located in the area that you plan on capping and bringing a lot more construction into, especially for 375 and now the I-75 project?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you switched it from disruption away from destruction. That's not what we're trying to do. But I think there's a number of ways that we can synergize the projects. One of the things we are looking at is there a way from a construction alignment standpoint to stagger the 375 and the I-75 construction timelines to try to make that as seamless as possible to ensure that we have some level of accessibility. As you heard from Eric, we are investigating the opportunity of a tiered approach. So we can do this in phases. We are very sensitive, obviously, to the viability of our existing businesses as well as ones that are returning to downtown. And so we know that with both of these becoming some of the primary arterials going in and out of the downtown area, we have to be very sensitive to the businesses and to the residents. Additionally, and I want to make sure we're very clear on this, we are empathetic not only of our downtown and our business core, but also of our residents on the east side of downtown, right? Because these are going to go adjacent to all of those areas. And so we have to be mindful of the impact of our residents that live in the many neighborhoods along that arterial. And so we're looking at what the disruption will be and how we can address mitigation, specifically not only to our businesses, but also to the livelihoods of our residents. And so it's a tricky balance, make no bones about it, but it is one that we're looking for resources as well as signage, wayfinding, and marketing to support businesses during the construction period. And one of the things I've found to be most successful when it comes to protecting our businesses is open and consistent communication, not only with the residents and businesses themselves, but also for all their markets that are coming to those areas so people know how to access markets and the best ways to get in and out during the construction period.
Antoine Bryant is the City of Detroit's Director of Planning and Development, and Eric Larson is the CEO of Downtown Detroit Partnership. Thank you both so much for joining us on the Metro this morning.
Wonderful to be with you.
The third,
always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. The I-75, the third I-75 CAP public visioning session is happening Tuesday, October 29th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the MSU Detroit Center. This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM in the forecast. Today, expect a chance of rain and a high of 62 degrees. This weekend, Saturday and Saturday and Sunday, because it's going to be a sunny Sunday.
Yeah, that works.
It does. Rolls
I'm
off
here
the
for
tongue.
that.
A sunny Sunday. So, Saturday and Sunday, sunny skies with highs in the mid to upper 50s.
Looking forward to that. Coming up, an Arab American Empowerment Summit is happening today and tomorrow. We'll talk about what it means to build power during a time of frustration and grief for many Arab Americans.
Welcome back to the Metro. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. It has been a year of frustration and devastation for many Arab Americans. Israel continues to bomb Gaza, killing over 40,000 Palestinians. And Israel is also attacking Lebanon, all with the support of the U.S. The Biden administration continues to fund the war. And that's created a lot of tension among Arab Americans in the Democratic Party, especially as that party prevented a Palestinian American from speaking at the Democratic National Convention. Now, according to some polling, more Arab voters now support Trump over Harris. So if it's not through the political apparatus, how can Arab Americans be empowered at this moment? Where does empowerment come from? These questions are being explored at the Arab American Empowerment Summit today and tomorrow at the Ford Community and Performing Arts Center in Dearborn. The event includes music, food, and panel discussions from local leaders. To discuss the details is Warren David. He's the co-founder of the Arab America Foundation. Warren, welcome to the Metro.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for joining us. Tell me, what are the goals of the summit?
Well, the goals of the summit parallel the goals of the Arab America Foundation, which promotes, educates, and connects. So we promote the Arab heritage in the United States. And one of the big initiatives that we started actually, is National Arab American Heritage Month. So we started that back in 2017, the movement for it. And then it became national when it was recognized by the White House in 2021. So we promote, as I said, Arab heritage. And then secondly, we educate Americans about a narrative that they don't get maybe in the mainstream media, a more accurate image of Arabs. And we do that through our website, arabamerica.com. And then thirdly, we connect and empower. We bring Arab Americans together. The Arab American community is a very diverse identity. There's like 22 different nationality groups. We're diverse politically, religiously, and ethnically. But with this initiative through Arab America and through this summit, we bring Arab Americans from all over the country, and they come together on the one thing that unites us, which is the Arabic language, the culture, the values. I jokingly sometimes say that whether you're Chaldean, whether you're Egyptian, whether you're Lebanese Muslim or Christian or Palestinian, we all eat hummus.
Yes,
so
yes.
we can come together. Yeah, we can. Yeah, there are ways that we can come together.
Yep.
And it's important that we do, and that's part of we have Arab Americans from like 26 states joining us this weekend.
Well, as a fellow Arab American, yes, I can tell you we are not a monolith, but yes, we all do appreciate good hummus. So
that's right.
but tell me, what does Arab American empowerment look like right now? Because yes, these are excellent initiatives when you talk about Arab American Heritage Month, bringing people together and trying to wipe away some of the stigma that has long been entrenched from the media in particular, which has portrayed Arabs as being these villains, as these nefarious characters. But at this moment, right now, what does Arab American empowerment look like, given it is a moment marked by a lot of despair?
It's very challenging. I can tell you that, and this is probably a historic period that's unprecedented since October 7th. Not to say that Arab Americans were not marginalized before.
Right.
The stereotype has gone on in films and media and political rhetoric and so forth, but since October 7th, it's even been more challenging, and it really it actually makes us a stronger community because there's a need for us to really, more than ever, to come together as Arab Americans and to seize our narrative and to reaffirm our Arab American, our Arab identity.
Now, we're fast approaching the election, and many Arab Americans are feeling hopeless about that, let's be frank, about who to vote for, given both candidates have not shown an appetite to end the war. What are the ways that this summit is encouraging participation in the election, or is it?
Yeah, we are. It's a civic duty of all Americans to vote. And so we do have different panels, but we have one panel in particular that deals with the vote and the election, and we're bringing Maya Berry from the Arab American Institute to moderate that particular panel. And the discourse of that panel is to talk about why we should vote. Because there are many Arab Americans that are frustrated. In the wake of what's happened in the last year, and there are many that are undecided. They really don't know which way to go, right? We know there's a big portion that's undecided, and there are people that are going with in different directions that maybe they traditionally didn't go in the past, right? They changed their direction, whether it's leaving the Democratic Party, going Republican, going with third party, and so forth. So this panel will address some of those issues, and I think it's important that we discuss it, we bring it out in the open, and hopefully, we can help our community to when they go to the polls, to be a little bit more secure in voting and making the right choice.
We're speaking with Warren David. He's the co-founder of the Arab America Foundation. Warren, so what do you think the Harris administration, why isn't it declaring a ceasefire? Why isn't it withholding arms from Israel? There are way more Arab voters here in Michigan than Jewish ones. What is the political strategy here?
Yeah. I mean, many Arab Americans who voted blue in the past, voted Democratic, are extremely disappointed in the, I want to say, the Biden administration, in the stance that it took in the wake of October 7th regarding the genocide, regarding the brutal killing of so many, over 40,000 Palestinians, and not restricting, not following a military embargo. I mean, that was something that was asked many times, not allowing, for instance, like you mentioned earlier, Rua, to speak at the Democratic convention. I mean, it just seems like it's no. And it's very difficult for Arab Americans to, in their heart, in some ways, they want to come forward. They'd like to vote for Vice President Harris. But at the same time, it's very difficult because when you look at the complicity of our country and what happened over the last 12 months in Gaza, and now it's Lebanon. So it's I've never seen anything like it. I mean, our community is fragmented.
Yes, yeah. It truly is. And to that end, on the other side of this is former President Trump, who's been deeply Islamophobic, very pro-Israel. What do you tell voters who are on the fence? Yeah,
it's vote your conscience. That's the best I can tell them, because, some people have lost relatives. They've lost family members. I mean, you've heard those stories, right? I mean, people from Gaza that lost 30 family members or 40. Yeah. One guy lost 90 family members. I think it was a doctor in Washington, D.C. area. And the same thing, it's ditto in Lebanon now. You're seeing it happen. Yep. So, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's an emotional, it's like kind of like there's the emotional and there's the logic, right? Logic tells you maybe to do something, to go one way, but then your emotions tell you to do something else. It's a very difficult call. I wish I could answer that question, but
right.
You have to at the end of the day, when you go in the voting booth, you have to vote for what you think is best, for you and for your community and for the country.
Well, Warren, I'm hearing the frustration in your voice that I think is emblematic of the way a lot of Arab Americans feel right now. I'm wondering, with the Arab American Empowerment Summit that you are leading today and tomorrow, if there are panels to support folks from a emotional standpoint. Yeah, we do have some. We do have panels on young youth, youth leadership, and they're going to and that rhetoric will come out in those panels. It's going to be there through the whole weekend. Even though, let's say it's a panel on women, we have a women's panel, but a lot of the rhetoric is going to be directed in that way because it's affected us as a community. It's part of us right now, and even some people were coming in last night. And I was at the hotel and talking to them, and they said, "Who are you going to vote for? What do you think? What do you think?" I mean, it's people are, they're caught, they're drawn, and they're trying to, to make the best decision. And I know it's critical in Michigan. It's very critical in Michigan. So right. We hope that this weekend that our community can come together. We have, over 400 people registered as of today. From, as I said, from 26 states, and we hope that, and many of them are from their different communities, their leaders and so forth. We're hoping that we can at least, feel a little bit better and maybe, move us forward in the right direction, hopefully. Warren David is the co-founder of the Arab America Foundation. He helped set up the Arab American Empowerment Summit today and tomorrow at the Ford Community and Performing Arts Center in Dearborn. Warren, thanks so much for joining us on the Metro.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
The Empowerment Summit for Arab Americans is today and tomorrow at Ford Community and Performing Arts Center.
Coming up on the Metro, we've been talking with magistrates running to be a judge in Detroit's 36th District Court. We'll hear from the last of those candidates coming up next. Welcome back to the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent.
And Robin, you've been sitting down with the candidates for Judge in 36D. Today is that final conversation.
Yeah, Tia, the 36D. That's the nickname I've heard people in the 36th District Court use. And, you know, the race for judge, it draws less attention than other local contests. But we should be paying more attention. Judges in the 36th District play a crucial role in Detroit. Their decisions can influence the city's crime rate. The job comes with immense responsibility. They have to follow the rule of law while honoring the rights and the dignity of people before them. And in Detroit's 36th District Court, the largest district court in Michigan, 3 candidates are running for 2 open seats at a time when the court has seen some big changes. It recently entered into a bail reform agreement with the ACLU of Michigan, and that agreement prohibits imposing high cash bail under most circumstances. So this week, we've been speaking with the candidates to see where they stand on this and how they'd make Detroit's justice system more equitable. Today, we close out our series with Andrea Bradley Baskin. We began by talking about what Baskin's current work looks like as general counsel for the 36th District Court. So you're the general counsel for the 36th District Court. What does your work look like on any given day? And I'm sure it's different day by day.
Yes. And a football analogy is any given Monday, not Sunday, because every day is different and challenging and rewarding. So general counsel means I am the lawyer for the court. I'm the lawyer for the judges. And I'm really the lawyer for the citizens who access the court on a daily basis, from the perspective that I promote access to justice and remove barriers for regular citizens that come in our courthouse every day.
What does that look like, removing those barriers, improving that access to justice? Can you give me some examples?
Certainly. So one of the biggest areas, post-pandemic, City of Detroit, right to counsel was put into place, which made it so that tenants who need counsel have access to free counsel, okay, if they meet or fall under a certain income limit. And so I want to make sure every day that those persons who have access to free legal counsel understand they have that right. So my role in doing that is making sure they get to room 417 and can get paired up with one of the agencies that are providing the service. I also work with the judges daily who are on the landlord-tenant docket, talking about what that looks like. Do they have enough of the agency attorneys in their courtroom? Because if they don't, then I'll be having those discussions with the agency lawyers. We also talk about the advice that the judges are giving to the citizens. And so I have a unique position in that I'm general counsel, is that I already know the message that the judges are to give to the citizens of Detroit. I'm working integrally with that on a day-to-day basis.
Why go from general counsel to running for judge?
Absolutely. I think it's a great question, something I've thought about for a long time. And I'll tell you, it wasn't an easy change because being a policymaker has been very rewarding. But I know that there's 2 vacancies. And I'm a native Detroiter. I'm raising my family here. I'm from here, and I've had my practice here. So I understand the needs of the community. I understand the person that's coming through the courthouse. I understand them. And I also know that there's a need for a good next judge at 36th District Court. And I was encouraged by some of the judges that are on the bench to go ahead and move forward with running because they see my passion for the law. And I do. I have a passion in the work that I do there and my understanding of the law. I work together with the judges on a day-to-day basis, going through legal analysis. If they need something, if they have a legal question about a particular matter that might come in front of them, they have no problem reaching out to me, and I provide that feedback. I've drafted opinions, so they've seen my legal writing. They know that I understand the court.
Mm. When you talk about counseling the judges, I am guessing that one thing you've counseled them on is the agreement that the 36th District Court entered into with the ACLU, which has transformed Detroit's judicial system since it was enacted roughly a year and a half ago. And that agreement is centered on bail reform. And it says the court cannot impose prohibitively expensive cash bail under most circumstances. And we know that the agreement is aimed at addressing racial inequality. Now, you're seeing this from a very intimate view. And again, I'm guessing counseling judges on it. What's your take on it overall?
The need for bail reform is something that's touching every court in the state of Michigan and across the country. What we're doing at 36th District Court is novel, and I have the pleasure of actually sitting in the middle of it on a day-to-day basis. So I work with outside counsel, and I'm in regular discussions with the ACLU. And what started out as a lawsuit against the court has matured into a very great partnership with the ACLU to really set the guardrails and the legal framework for what bail reform looks like at 36th District Court and what could look like from a legislative standpoint if that was taken up by the state of Michigan and the legislators. And there is some legislation that is being advanced now regarding what we are doing. And when I say we, I'm saying what I'm doing along with counsel and along with the ACLU on a day-to-day basis, really setting those guardrails so that there is cash bail in cases of a flight risk, or if a person is a danger to the community. And those are really the guardrails. And I continue to talk through that framework with the ACLU about, how many cases, the volume of cases that we see, the nature of the cases that we're seeing. And then we kind of look at the numbers and go from there as to what is needed to continue to be tweaked. And so once we come to an agreement as to how we're going to navigate, and this is happening daily because every 2 months we have data reports that we go over together. Then I report that out to the chief judge, and I also report that out to the magistrates because the magistrates come to me for legal advice on this very issue. And so it is my work, along with the ACLU and our outside counsel, in setting those guardrails that dictates what the magistrates are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Tell me, as a judge in the 36th District Court, how you would make Detroit's judicial system more equitable.
It's a great question. I think that, there's two topics or two words that I think people use without a real breakdown of what they are: justice and equity. Big, broad umbrella topics. And I think it boils down to some of the same principles, which is respect. Mm-hmm. I think in order to have justice, you need to be able to have fair decisions made with a respect for the person without any bias, and have the ability to respect the person that's in front of you and to see them as an individual handling a legal matter and to apply the law fairly and without any bias. Mm. Equity really comes into that play as well because I'm a person. The judges there are all people. And I think that because I've been behind the scenes with them, there's not that mystique that there are not also people, and that when you ascend to the level of a judge that you then take on this new persona. No, we're still people that are putting our pants on the same way. And that respect, whether you're in a robe, you're in a suit, you're in a jail uniform, it has to transcend equally across the board to each and every case and each and every person that you see.
Mm. Tell me something you wish more people understood about Detroit's judicial system.
I wish people understood how hard those judges work. I think that 36th District Court is such a hard-working court, and I've had this conversation most recently with a judge who's been there over 30 years. It's a teaching court. When I say that, there's relationship with the judges who walk alongside those hallways together and talk about cases and really care. There is a true caring sense there, and it is what makes me want to be there as a judge. It's what got me there as general counsel, and it is what has me wanting to stay there.
That was Andrea Bradley Baskin. She's one of 3 candidates running for judge in the 36th District Court. Check WDET.org for conversations with the other 2 candidates, Malika Ramsey Heath and William Burton Jr.
Coming up, we'll talk about what Detroit officials are doing to try to hold landlords accountable in the city. You all stay right there for the Metro.
Welcome back to the Metro. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. And happy Friday to our listeners and to the Detroit Documenters.
They're back on the program this week to discuss changes that could be coming to Detroit's rental ordinance.
Data-Driven Detroit estimated there's over 120,000 total rental properties in the city, and only 9% of these properties have a certificate of compliance.
A decision hasn't been made yet, but documenters were in 2 meetings this week where a rental ordinance is being considered to ensure more city landlords are compliant. To talk about renting in the city and what's required of landlords,
we're joined by Detroit documenter Tyrone Anderson and Detroit Documenters coordinator Noah Kincaid. Tyrone and Noah, thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Noah, 9% is a really low number. Why are there so few buildings in compliance right now in the city of Detroit?
I think a lot of it is because it's expensive. There's multiple inspections that have to happen, and so the whole process is kind of onerous for the landlords. And so the idea here is to, by making it less expensive for them to register the properties, and just less altogether of a process, more will register. The city will have a better idea of which properties are being rented, and then that way they have a better ability to bring them into compliance.
And Noah, what does that mean? What are the consequences for renters? What's happening at these buildings?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is safety issues, right? One of the big ones, of course, is lead exposure, and that's kind of some of the bigger changes here are concerning lead exposure, especially when there's small kids in the house, but other safety issues too. You know, there was a situation they discussed on it was either Monday or Tuesday at City Council, where a child, an infant, died after falling through a broken floor.
That's just some grisly news.
Tyrone, what did residents have to say at Monday's hearing?
Well, there were 2 residents who made public comment. The first individual had concerns about the proposed lead assessment changes. He stated that the testing methodology that they're trying to use is a visual assessment, and that it just doesn't meet the HUD, EPA, or the American Academy of Pediatrics standards. He also stated that this methodology could possibly violate state law, and anyone who performs an assessment in line with these guidelines could be in violation and lose their certification.
Wow.
Now, one of the residents' concerns was inspectors entering rental properties. Can you talk about the property inspection process?
Sure. So Arthur Russian from the Building Safety and Engineering and Environment Department, he stated that this language generally deals with commercial properties, but there is a section within the rental ordinance, and generally it's due to external public nuisance. So it's not internal to the dwelling. He stated that if there is a public nuisance, the landlord will be cited or given notice, have 7 days to cure. If they do not cure, they'll be ticketed, and after the ticketing phase, the city would come and abate.
And if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Detroit documenters Noah Kincaid and Tyrone Anderson about a new rental ordinance that would make more Detroit properties compliant. And Noah, you were talking just a little bit earlier with us here, but what were some of those proposed changes? Was some of the red tape there that was going to be easier for landlords to be compliant? What are we cutting?
Sure. So as it is currently, there's two different inspections that happen. There's a property condition inspection, and then there's a lead safety that's separate. They're going to combine those two, so it's just one inspection that has to happen. The property owners are no longer going to be required to have this. It's a pretty expensive lead inspection. It's about $800. And that's only going to be required if there is a child under the age of 6 living in the house that has elevated lead levels in their blood. Instead, all the properties in the city are going to just get a visual lead inspection. And if they fail that visual inspection, or it indicates that they might have an issue with lead, they're going to do a much cheaper, easier lead testing that's just done with dust wipes, where you wipe a windowsill and it'll indicate if there's a presence of lead. And then if it fails that test, they'll have to remediate that problem. The landlord will, and they'll keep coming back and doing those wipes until they're in compliance and they don't indicate any lead. Additionally, currently, the property condition inspection looks at like 37 different issues. They're going to reduce that to the 15 that are the most serious conditions. And the whole idea of this is to ultimately reduce the overall inspection costs from costing over $1,000 each time to be about $150 or less.
Wow.
Then, in addition to making it easier for the landlords, on the flip side of this, if the landlords don't register their properties and get them inspected, they are going to be increased and costlier tickets when they're found not to be in compliance. And they're adding the ability for the city to place liens on the property if they are just negligent in their duties and they don't bring the buildings up to code. There's one last thing that is really important, and this is a great feature for that's a bonus for tenants. And that is the city has an escrow program that they run so that if your landlord is negligent and you're living in an unsafe environment, you can, instead of paying your rent to the landlord, you can put it into an escrow account. Your landlord doesn't get that money until they fix the problem.
Wow.
And it's great because this is run by the city. So it's all very official, and they're going to make that process easier so more tenants can use it.
That's really significant. Is there a way for people to still give their input on the ordinance?
There is. City Council, they took it up on Tuesday and they postponed it for a week. Durhal wanted to look at some of those issues with the lien, and they're going to take it back up again on Tuesday. So, yeah, if people want to speak out on this, you can show up to formal session on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and give public comment.
And Tyrone, before we get out of here, one of the residents' concerns was inspectors entering renter properties. I just want you to get into a little bit more about what's going on with the inspections, if you can.
Well, what I can say is that the BC department, the Safety and Engineering Department, stated that they do not enter properties to abate. And also, Miss Taverna from the mayor's office, she also stated that the language that is being changed is non-substantive. So it doesn't create any additional authority or powers for the city to abate public nuisance. So nothing changes in that regard.
Thank you so much for the clarification there. Detroit documenter Tyrone Anderson and Detroit Documenters Coordinator Noah Kincaid, thank you both so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
The Metro for Friday, October 25th. The Metro is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt, with additional support from Dorothy Jones. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Music by Sam Bobian and Will Sessions.
You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. The show is also on YouTube if you like listening that way.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. We'll see you on Monday.
Have a good weekend. I was going to say, have a good weekend, guys.